What's going on, everybody? Brandon Taylor here, RideAlong Sports, back at it again on your device, wherever you are, however you may be watching or listening to us. This is the rapid recap from Week 8 in college football. Fasten your seatbelts, folks. We're going to zip on through, and just as the season is progressing at high speeds, we're going to be progressing at high speeds here on this episode. We're going to get you all the information that you need. Looking back, we're going to get to the SEC slate. We're going to look at all our RideAlong Sports Game of the Week. We'll get you the stats. We'll get you whatever information you need, and then we'll get you on home right in time for dinner. That was kind of cheesy, but that's what it's all about, folks. Just having fun right here on just a great fall's day, right? Let us know, is it warm still where you live, or has it gotten chilly yet? Some days it's warm, some days it's cool. But you know what, folks? Regardless of what the weather does, we just know it's football season. It's hot, it's cold. We're just loving every single minute of it. And I think we had an eventful week, right? Wouldn't you say so? Were we really surprised, though? I mean, were there any real upsets? We're going to also take a look back at our predictions that Zach and I did. And speaking of Zach, I want to remind you just to kind of do a little bit of housekeeping here. Zach and I are back doing the live show on Tuesday, so we'll be live on YouTube, and we'll simulcast that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcasts in audio format, because I know a lot of you like to listen like that, as I do. Hey, throughout the day, I'm listening to some kind of podcast. But let's not waste any time. This is the rapid recap, after all. Let's just move right into it as we start with the first two games that we're going to look back and talk about here from the SEC. Mississippi State, Arkansas, and South Carolina, and number 20, Missouri. If you watched these games, I feel sorry for you. I really do. So, obviously, in the Mississippi State-Arkansas game, very uneventful game. Sort of not really what we expected. We thought there was going to be some scoring in this game, and especially in this day and time in 2023, to see a game end like that, it says a lot about these two teams. It was 7-3. Mississippi State gets the win over Arkansas. Look, all you need to know is right here what these stats tell you. If you didn't know what the score of this game was and you just looked at these stats, that would say a lot. I mean, it honestly would. Let's see. Mike Wright from Mississippi State, he played in this game. Actually started. He was 8 of 12, 85 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. KJ Jefferson was 19 of 31, 97 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. Absolutely no production, as you could see, from the quarterback position in this ball game. Now, rushing, you had Mike Wright from Mississippi State get 11 carries, 60 yards. Jaquavius Marks gets 17 carries for 42 yards. Seth Davis, 3 carries for 14 yards, and it goes on from there. No touchdowns on the ground for them, and obviously no touchdowns on the ground. No touchdowns anyway for the Razorbacks. Rashad Dubinion, 14 carries, 47 yards. KJ Jefferson himself got 16 carries of 38 yards. A.J. Green, 4 carries of 13 yards. You know, there's just not much to say about this game. Receiving, Justin Robinson from Mississippi State, 2 receptions of 40 yards. Javion Thomas, 2 receptions for 23 yards. On Arkansas, there was a slew of players. Andrew Armstrong, 4 receptions, 35 yards. Ty Washington, 1 reception for 19. And it kind of goes down progressively from there. This is just an ugly football game. It was, let's see. Who got KJ Jefferson fumbled the ball twice. He lost it one time. Created a turnover there. Defensively, 4 sacks Mississippi State got, and 1 sack for Arkansas. Honestly, we don't need to spend too much time talking about this one or looking back at this one, quite frankly. We'll get Zach's thoughts, quick thoughts on this game. I may ask him a question Thursday. A question like, in 3 words, in 4 words, tell me what you thought about this game. And I'm sure he could probably answer that question in 1. Now, I said last week, we talked about this, that these teams are in an identity crisis. Mississippi State for real, but I can see that Arkansas is in that, in that same boat. Look, we predicted a win for Arkansas, and we'll get into our predictions and we'll compare what we predicted to what really happened and which one of us got closer to all these games. But we thought it was going to be like a 30-something to 20-something game. I said 31-24. Zach said 35-24. It was, as you can see there, 7-3. So we were extremely off, and we had the wrong team winning the game. But hey, that's just how it goes. That's just how it goes. These teams are in they're in a bad way right now. Mississippi State, they're fighting. They could still become bowl eligible, but they've got a tough road ahead. Arkansas, I mean, they talk about a hot seat. That seat is getting hotter every week for them because you think, what year are they in right now with, let me see here. So you can almost excuse Mississippi State, Zach Arnett. He just inherited this team, and he was put in this position, and he's doing the best he can, right? He was a defensive coordinator that they didn't have him the interim coach. They just threw him right in there, and he's doing the best he can, and it's not looking pretty. I don't know what they'll do here moving forward, but for Sam Pittman, there's really no excuse, honestly. That hot seat is, next year, if they don't perform at a high level next year, I think he's gone. Some people may even say that he'd be gone this year. I don't know. I can't say. Moving on forward as we zoom on along here, we got the other game right there, South Carolina and number 20 Missouri. Missouri gets the win 34-12. Spencer Rattler has just not – he's been kind of disappointing. And I don't know how else to describe him but disappointing. He started off really promising early in the year, and they just have he just hasn't been able to produce the kind of numbers that we expected him to. He had 217 yards on this game. He threw 1 pick. He was 23 of 40. That's what I was looking for. Now, if we look on the other side for the Missouri Tigers, Brady Cook, 15-25, 205 yards, 1 touchdown. He's not bad. On the Missouri side, you got Cody Schrader rushing the ball, 26 carries, 159 yards, 2 touchdowns. Brady Cook himself had 9 carries of 64 yards and 1 touchdown. Take a look at their receiving. Luther Burden III had 5 receptions, 97 yards, and had a touchdown. Now for South Carolina, Mario Anderson had 12 carries, 68 yards. And that was really just about it for them in rushing the ball. Now on the receiving end, Nick Harbor had 2 receptions of 50 yards. Omega Blake had 3 receptions of 44 yards. Trey Knox, 5 receptions, 32 yards, and it slowly tapers off from there. Defensively in this game, sack-wise, South Carolina had a big fat 0, whereas Missouri had 5 sacks, 7 total tackles for loss. Missouri is a hot team. They're 7-1 right now, 3-1 in the conference. And they've got a good road ahead. Obviously, their only loss is to Georgia. Or no, LSU. Sorry, they played Georgia this week. I'm getting everything mixed up here. When is that game? That game is November 4th. So it's a couple weeks away. Actually, it'd be next Saturday, not this Saturday. But that game should be pretty good. I mean, Missouri, we saw what Kentucky did against Georgia, and that's not very much. Can Missouri turn it around, and can they show us something? Because I told you, and we told you, what is Kentucky going to do against Georgia? And that'll be a really real test to see where they are, where they lie. And right now, Missouri is undoubtedly the number 2 team in the East. Now that Tennessee couldn't get it done, could not keep themselves in the game versus Alabama. And Florida is inching back. They're doing pretty good. They're doing better than we thought they would. But Missouri right there getting a good victory over South Carolina in that ball game. Now, as we look further on, we had this game right here, which is, what you expected LSU to come out victorious in this game. But we didn't think it'd be by this. LSU destroys Army. 19th ranked LSU destroys Army 62-0. There's not going to be much to say about this. It is pretty much just how it is. The end zones painted camo pattern was pretty sweet. If you haven't checked that out, go check that out. That's a pretty good gesture by LSU. And what a way to cater to your opponent, the Army, right? The U.S. Army Academy, whatever you want to call it. The Army Black Knights. Coming over to old Baton Rouge to Death Valley. They got the end zones painted camouflage. Well, they obviously could not see the end zones, so that's a pretty good little idea that whoever came up with that did. I mean, they should get a raise. The grounds crew should get raises and paid vacations to anywhere in the world that they like, because I think they should continue that on. Every week they should have the camo end zones so their opponents can't find them. Because the Army was searching for it all night, and they just couldn't they couldn't even get close. Let's just be honest. Jaden Daniels, he didn't have to do much in this game. He was 11 of 15. 279 yards, 18.6 average, 3 touchdowns. Garrett Nussmeier, 7 of 12, 89 yards, and he got a touchdown as well. Trey Holly, 6 carries for 91 yards and a touchdown. Noah Kane, 7 carries, 40 yards and a touchdown. Logan Diggs, 6 carries, 26 yards and a touchdown. Jaden Daniels himself got a touchdown. 5 carries, 6 yards. Receiving-wise, Brian Thomas Jr. had 3 receptions, 122 yards, 2 touchdowns. Malik Neighbors, 4 receptions, 121 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And let's look at Army. Let's just see what they did here. Champ Harris was 4 of 9, 22 yards, 2 interceptions. Larry Robinson, 2 of 6, 20 yards, 1 interception. You can tell they're not a passing team. Would you believe that? So I'll tell you what their leading rusher did. Kanye Udo, 21 carries, 108 yards. His longest was 18. So there's not much more to say about that game. It was going to end no other way than that. Now Zach gave Army 17 points, and I gave Army 20 points. I said it was going to be 52-20. He thought it was going to be 48-17. We were off the mark pretty good bit, but, I mean, we underestimated LSU's offense, and we overestimated what Army could do, albeit I figured that would be garbage, like a lot of garbage time points. They couldn't even do anything in garbage time when LSU had backed off, but that's just how it is. That's just how it is, folks. As we move on further, we're going to take a look at the next game on our list. The next big game, I should say, on the list. That is Ole Miss and Auburn. That kicked off from Jordan-Hare Stadium. At 6 p.m., the Rebels managed to get a victory. The number 13 ranked Ole Miss Rebels beat the Auburn Tigers 28-21. Looking through some stats here, as you can see, Jackson Dart went 10 of 17, 202 yards, 1 touchdown. and he threw 1 pick. This is an interesting stat here. The other passer on this team was the frat boy kicker, or the frat boy punter, I should say. And I'll pull up this box score here so I can see it in a little bit bigger letters. Charlie Pollock, which is the punter, the frat boy punter, the guy that they got from a frat house that punted in high school. Pulled him out. He joined the team. So basically what happened here was the snap was muffed, right? It was a bad snap, and he couldn't get the ball down. So he stood up, and he went to throw it, and in a desperation play, it got picked off. So it's funny but I'm going to go ahead and say this. Charlie Pollock, 0 for 1, 0 yards, 1 interception. That's pretty funny, honestly. To hear some Lane Kiffin's comments on that after the game was pretty funny too, because he refers to him as the frat boy kicker or the frat boy punter, something like that. Peyton Thorne, 9 of 13, 100 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Robbie Ashford, 3 of 4, 22 yards, 1 pick. Now, Ole Miss had a pretty good day rushing. They had 21. Quinshon Judkins had 21 carries, 124 yards, 1 touchdown. Ulysses Bentley had 17 carries, 52 yards. Jackson Zard himself had 14 carries for 44 yards. In the air, Trey Harris had 4 receptions of 102 yards. Caden Prescorn, 2 receptions of 63. Zachary Franklin, 2 receptions of 15 yards and 1 touchdown. For Auburn rushing the ball, Jarquez Hunter, 15 carries for 2 touchdowns, 91 yards. Peyton Thorne had 11 carries, 34 yards. And in the air, Jarquez Hunter had 3 receptions. Rivaldo Fairweather, 5 receptions, 1 touchdown on 31 yards, and that's just about it. Now, defensively, Ole Miss had 3 sacks, 9 total tackles for loss. Auburn had 4 sacks and 8 total tackles for loss. Ole Miss had 2 interceptions, and Auburn obviously had the 2 interceptions with an asterisk beside the 1. But that's just, Ole Miss went in there, and they got a good win. You have to give it to them. They managed to go in an environment where it is tough to win for anybody, and regardless of how good or bad Auburn is, they're not ever an easy team to beat, especially, like I said, at their home field. But they went in there and they took care of business, and they're still alive, honestly. I mean, Ole Miss they have every reason to be optimistic. They've got a Vanderbilt game this weekend. They play Texas A&M, and they have to go to Athens to play the number 1 ranked Georgia Bulldogs, the defending national champions, back-to-back. And that'll be an interesting game. Now, again, they may go in there and they may not be able to do anything against Georgia, but you at least have to be optimistic. I know the team is optimistic. The team is excited for what's up ahead, and they should, honestly. Now, for Auburn, you can visibly see that Hugh Freeze is very upset. He's very angry. I mean, at the end of that ball game, the look on his face was something else. I mean, that team is going to make that man cuss. And that's saying a lot. But that's that game. Let's move on. We're riding way along through here. And as you could see, there was a lot of bye weeks, a lot of teams off this week. We've gotten to that part of the season where a lot of teams are getting these bye weeks. But the next game here, Tennessee and Alabama. A lot of people were very interested in this. They thought Tennessee, the number 17th ranked team in the country, had a chance to beat number 11 Alabama. But Alabama gets a victory at home, 34-20. Tennessee started off strong. They had 20 points going into halftime, 20-7 over Alabama. Nick Saban, I don't know what he did. I don't know if he threatened the team with Miss Terry, but they came out. They scored 17 in the third quarter, scored 10 in the fourth, and that's 27 unanswered points to end that ball game. And look, that's another example of Nick Saban being Nick Saban, the coach that we all know and love, or know and hate. He finds a way to win in adversity. It doesn't matter if he goes to the locker room losing like they did, if he goes into the locker room winning. He is going to face that adversity, hands on, head to head. He's going to look it in the eyes, and he's going to say, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to defeat you, and we're going to move on. And that's exactly what they did here. Tennessee was, that was one of the only chances left for Alabama to lose. Now, we honestly, outside of diehard Tennessee fans, and I know there's a lot of you out there. I see your comments on TikTok. Tennessee blew it. You had Nick Saban, and you had this team on their heels in the first half, and you came out and you couldn't produce anymore. Now I know, like last year, you won. You beat Nick Saban, and nobody beats Nick Saban twice in a row. It's very hard. It hasn't happened very often. But let's look at some stats here. Joe Milton went 28 of 41, 271 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jalen Milroe went 14 of 21, 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Rushing, Joe Milton III himself had 15 carries of 59 yards. Sampson had 4 attempts, 4 carries, 28 yards. And Small had 8 attempts, 24 yards. And Wright had 11 carries and 22 yards, Now, on the other side, Jace McClellan, 27 attempts, 27 carries, 115 yards, 1 touchdown. Moving on down the list here, Williams had 6 carries of 20 yards, and Milroe had 9 carries of 3 yards. Of course, the rushing yardage for a quarterback is a little skewed due to sack yardage and things like that. But as we move on down here, and I'll pull this graphic down a little bit so you can see the rest, those of you that are viewing this on YouTube here. So you had Squirrel White for Tennessee, had 10 receptions of 111 yards and 1 touchdown. Ramel Keaton, 5 receptions of 71 yards. Jalen Wright, 7 receptions of 44 yards. For Alabama, Isaiah Bond, 3 receptions, 77 yards, and a touchdown. Jermaine Burton, 4 receptions of 62 yards and a touchdown. Kendrick Law, 2 receptions, 38 yards, and it goes on down. Tapers off from there. Alabama did what they had to do. We'll get some of Zach's thoughts on this game as we near Thursday. And again, be sure to tune in Thursday as we go live right here for RideAlong Sports, the live show where we look ahead. We talk about the news in college football, and there's a lot of news, particularly with Michigan. We're going to have a lot to say there. But other things, that we look ahead to the games, we'll tell you what the teams have to do if they want to win. And what we think is going to happen, we'll break things down and all things in between. And, that's what we do here at RideAlong Sports. And it is time, without further ado, the RideAlong Sports Game of the Week. Now, this game, hey, what did we learn about this game? What did we learn about the Big Ten? I think we learned a lot. But, since Saturday, the more developments with Michigan have come out, and the cheating, sign-stealing fiasco that's going on there. The Big Ten is kind of in an odd place. Will Ohio State still go to the playoff, even though they're visibly not as good of a team as they have been? I don't know. But, hey, we'll see. And I don't have the graphic here, but I'll just tell you about it. Ohio State got the victory, 20-12. Not a super exciting game. You can tell the offensive production is not as good as we've seen in the past years. But let's get to some stats. I'm trying to pull this up here for you. Kyle McCord for Ohio State was 22 of 35, 286 yards, 1 touchdown. Drew Aller, 18 of 42, 191 yards, 1 touchdown. For Penn State, rushing the ball, Nicholas Singleton, 9 carries, 48 yards. Katron Allen, 9 carries, 26 yards. For Ohio State, Mian Williams, 24 carries, 62 yards, and 1 touchdown. Chip Terrayum, 9 carries, 22 yards. I just butchered his name. Sorry. Receiving the ball, Penn State, Lambert Smith had 6 receptions, 52 yards. Theo Johnson, 2 receptions, 39 yards. Marvin Harrison Jr. for Ohio State, 11 receptions, 162 yards, and a touchdown. Cade Stover, 4 receptions of 70 yards. Carnell Tate, 3 receptions of 21 yards. Let's take a look at the defensive production. Stat-wise, Penn State had 2 sacks, 9 total tackles for loss. Ohio State had 4 sacks, 6 total tackles for loss. Now, one more thing that we're going to look at. We're going to talk about this game a little bit more. I'm going to get a couple opinions from Zach on this. I think these teams are not as good as they have been in past years, especially Ohio State. We'll see what they do. I think Michigan right now is the best team in the Big Ten, and it may not be close. But they're in this controversy, so we'll just have to see how that goes. Real quick, I'm going to throw this up here, and this right here is the prediction. This is what I wrote down on Zach and I's prediction. As you can see how far we were off on MSU and Arkansas. The game was 7-3. Zach said it was 35-24, and I said it was going to be 31-24. For Army and LSU, it was a 62-0 game. Zach said 48-17. I said 52-20. For South Carolina, Missouri, it was 34-12. Zach said 31-13. Pretty close. And I said 31-17. He almost got that one. For Ole Miss and Auburn, it was 28-21. Zach said 27-17. And I said 30-24. Pretty close for both of us. So I think we got that one pretty close. Now, for Tennessee and Alabama, as you know, it was 34-20. Zach said 24-16, and I said 27-17. And finally, for Penn State and Ohio State, 20-12, Ohio State wins. Zach said 17-13, Ohio State. I said 28-27, Ohio State. And that's how it went. Tune in Thursday for Zach's opinion on that, for what he thinks. How confident he is of going into the future. Because this week we'll have more picks. Great games up ahead. And it's tough. It's not easy picking games, folks. No matter what anybody says, it's not easy when you have to pick a game. Well, I'm just about out of time, folks, right here on the RideAlong Sports Rapid Recap. And thank you so much, folks, for joining us today, for joining me today, this morning, this evening, wherever you are, however you may be listening, watching us. Presenting content to you just as rapid as we can, just as soon as we can. On TikTok, follow us there at RideAlong Sports. where Zach and I have content that we try to post there fairly frequently. We're also on X or Twitter. So tune in Thursday where we talk about Week 9 and so much more. Thank you again, folks, for joining us. My name is Brandon Taylor, right here for Ride Along Sports. Hope you have a great one, and God bless.